meeting. This is the Finance Committee meeting. The time is 6:02, February 14th, 2023. All members of council are present. Present from the administration is Mayor Morton, Fire Chief Ed Whittington, Chief Building Official Dave Ned, and Finance Director Caroline Chanel. All other members of the administration are absent and excused. On the agenda tonight, we have proposed budget. I believe we're going to discuss revenues tonight. Is that correct?
I think we can do more than that.
Okay. We're going to start with revenues. All right. So at this time, I'll just turn it over to our Finance Director, Caroline Chanel.
Thank you. The first thing, since you've all heard the original budget at one point in time, I want to direct you to the last appendix A, it's the third last page from the back. And it talks about the capital expenditures that we're hoping to be able to include in our budget this year. It would be certain set of roads for $2.1 million, of course, the splash park, which we're looking to finance for $1.2 million. A piece of equipment for the service department at $191,000, vehicle for the police department, 75, vehicles for the fire department, 70, to repair some floors in the building and fire department, $150,000, to repair the roads for the fire department, $100,000, and radios for the fire department, approximately $60,000. So I want you to know that these are the large projects that we'd like to be able to include and which are included in my numbers so that you can see where we would stand as long as you're approving these projects. Please remember that even though you're approving a budget, these cannot be spent without your approval. All the items must come before council to be approved for the vendor and for the item. So these are included in there so that you can feel where we would stand with the exception of the splash park if we want to finance that. But these items are included in the budget, okay? So that's where we're starting. Now, if you go to page 11, where we talk about the revenue, if you look at the two subtotals, total taxes and total government, those two buckets, that's 92% of your general fund. The rest of it is just miscellaneous. Did somebody take 11? Okay. Okay. So these two categories encompass 92%. The rest is really just miscellaneous stuff where you're looking at this number of millions of dollars. The general property tax number, yeah, that comes in from the county. Yeah, we are anticipating it to be less than last year because last year we had a settlement on a lawsuit that had been hanging out there for years and years. We collected that last year. So that settlement caused our revenue in 2022 to be higher than 23 because, of course, 23 is not going to have that settlement. If you're looking at the income tax line, and I'm talking about the amount from income tax-city, I lowered a little bit. There were a lot of unusual things in 2022. There was some large income taxes, which I never know how the business is going to operate in 2023. I really don't know if the business already paid it when he paid his final on 22. Did he make his payment for 23 in that number? So there's a lot of unknowns in income taxes. So that's the second reason why I lowered it. And the third reason that I lowered it is because the powers to be all talk about how the economy is going to fund. And truthfully, to lower it $300,000 out of $9 million, I didn't think was out of line in terms of an estimate. And of course, as we receive it, we can change that number, but I did lower it for that particular reason. Local government, state and local government, those numbers are provided to me by the county. I get those numbers in December. They will revise them sometime between December and April, but for now, and that includes property tax, that could be revised. But for now, these were the numbers provided me in December, and this is all I have to work with. And that is 92% of our figures. When you go to the grand total for the general fund, you can see that I've lowered it about $686,000, but please remember, that's because we had $300,000 lowering on the income taxes, and then realistically just some things that we just don't know about, registrations or minimum income or local government. So everything took a little bit of a hit. Most of my numbers are either income tax or come from the county in terms of government numbers. So that's about $600,000. Any questions on the revenue and where we foresee it going?
The only thing I'll add is they may not be aware. So Cheryl and I have been going over one particular company we keep getting money for. It's probably for people working at home, so they have to not count that as revenue until we see first couple quarters or whatever, we see if any more money coming in. But it's a decent amount of money, and I don't want to put it in thinking that, hey, we're going to get this. I look at it at this point, windfall. So never want to windfalls in the budget. So we've discussed that.
22, a lot of people work from home. We don't know where we stand for 23. Again, we've only lowered it about $300,000, but it is lowered for those reasons. Okay. Now, if you go to page 4, 4, 5, 6, and 7, that's what we asked you to approve in terms of a budget. So this is a summary of all the activities from all the different departments in terms of expenses for payroll and other expenses, but that is how our budget is prepared in terms of for your legislation, payroll and other expenses. The total general government cost is up approximately 4.8%, not counting transfers. So just the operational portion of the general government is up about 4.8%. There are some large transfers in here because in order to do the road project, the general fund has to give the money to the road program. The road program does not have that kind of money this year. So in order to do that road project, the general fund must basically give the money to the road fund. So there are some large transfers. We've always had the transfers for the bond, make our debt payments. We've always had the transfer for CRIF because we have to be compared to the stadium. We have for several years now done compensated absences because we know we have some large liabilities out there. We've also been doing rainy day fund, and I'm asking you to consider that again this year. And then the payroll reserves are 27 paid. And that's the year when there are 27 payrolls in that year, reduced to 26. So to fund a whole payroll in 1 year would be an extreme hardship on the city. So therefore, we're funding it a little bit every year until we get 2027, which is the 27th pay. So that's the year. So if we continue on the schedule of doing this amount, $50,000 a year, we should, based on what we know today, be able to make that payment without significant changes to an operating budget or a reserve. Okay? So, next page I'd like to direct you to is page 8. Page 8 is very critical, and it tells you where we started the year, what we anticipate receipts for the year, what we have anticipated in terms of expenses for the year, and where we anticipate the end of the year to be. So it's really what is your checking account balance for the general fund at December 31st, 22, and based on projections, and we always hope our projections in terms of revenue will come in stronger. But, at this point in time, we're anticipating that you would end up in the general fund at approximately $2.3 million. It is showing that every one of these funds is ending in a positive balance. We must do that as a city. We must have a positive balance or a zero. And it also highlights that most of these are approximately where they started at the beginning of the year. Now, there's going to be a few exceptions. Fund 204. Fund 204 is our stadium fund right now, where we're doing all those major repairs, and we advanced it $1.5 million. So at the end of the year, when I suspect that we would have $1.5 million left, that needs to go back to the general fund. All right? So that's the loan, basically, that we advanced that construction fund. If you also look at Fund 421, the Stadium Operating Fund, it ends the year significantly lower than what it started. And that's because we're doing a roof project. We, as the city, have had to repair the old stadium roof over the central offices. And so by the time we're done paying for that roof, we anticipate that we will have a significantly lower for this fund balance than where we started the year. The only other fund I want to bring to your attention is the sanitary sewer. The sanitary sewer is starting the year at approximately $3 million. We anticipate that at the end of this year, we could be down to $2 million. That's a bad trend for the sewer. I want to bring this to your attention now because rates haven't been changed in long before I was here. And as you see this fund needing to spend and needing to pay loans and needing to pay interest for all the loans we've taken out on the sewer project, you will note that at some point in time, adjustments are going to have to be made. So I'm bringing this to your attention now. Okay? So far, any questions? We're good. All right. I highlighted the revenue in the general fund because that is the bulk of what we receive in. When we were talking about funds, the 200 basically come in from levy money. 300 is the debt, and basically we fund that. 400, we have a levy in there plus the stadium money. 500 is sewer. We collect the sewer money. After that, it's basically deposits or donations or not something that we operate off of, but more of something that we are fiscally responsible for. So I didn't bother highlighting those for you tonight because I thought the most important thing was to go over the general fund. Are there any questions then? Okay. Okay. If you'd like to turn to page 11, I'm sorry, you're right at 11. I want 14. 14. Those are the general fund costs. By line item, which helps the department head understand approximately what he or she may be using in his department for various purposes. It's a roadmap for them. The wages are based on real wages, as much as I know at this point in time, and I have used the actual wages that I know of and placed them in this formula for every fund you see. Well, when it comes to the other costs, I have allowed, so basically there's really nothing more to talk about on wages. But for the other costs, there may be something that might maybe need highlighting for you to look at. I would say one of those items would be the RETA expense, and that's going to be a 101, 142, 5336. RETA expense is a a function of what's collected. The good news is that if they're able to control the cost in a year, we would get a rebate or a refund, which is why it may look like we're spending more money this year, but in reality, it's only because we got a rebate last year. So we pay a percentage to Rita, they even up at the end of the year, they send us a rebate check. I apply against the expense because what they did was they said my expenses were not that high. Okay? So Rita is a number that I would anticipate being larger than maybe prior years. The 101-240 numbers, hospitalization, even though I may have a very good idea as to where our hospitalization was last year, we've hired a lot of young people that started out as single. And today they're married with babies. Now I have to adjust my insurance cost for that. And I don't have a formula to tell me what percentage of our folks are going to end up being on a married plan with kids by the end of this year. So I've done my best guess of saying, well, a certain percentage of these people normally should be married, but they're not right yet. And it's a flat guess. But I did it the best I could with what I know today. And I know that Keith is sitting there going, yep, I had singles and now I've got married with kids. It's who we hired. We hired a lot of the young ones. And we had a lot of hiring in the last couple of years, and that's what we're getting. So that's pretty much what we have with hospitalization. So it's a big number. If we don't use it, it rolls into the next year. I'm just saying I don't know where to pin it, and that's my best guess. Okay? So hospitalization is a large number. Workers' comp, I'm hoping that workers' comp, even though it looks like it's more, our workers, it's a function of how it was paid. Workers' comp is paid on the credit card, it's paid in December. If I don't pay the credit card till January, it doesn't show up till the January bill. So it looks like workers' comp is being an extra expense of $150,000, but in reality, we're paying about $170,000, maybe $150,000. So it's just the timing on this one that caused the dollar amount to look like we're spending more, when in reality it was the timing of the credit card. It should even itself out at some point in time, but in order to get all the additional rebates with workers' comp, it's called Go Green. We have to do it paperless, and we pay with credit card. That's what the credit card is for. Fuel costs in 101-240 are up. We all understand why that would be the case. Fuel costs have gone up. Computer support is budgeted close to, actually budgeted the same as what it was last year, but it's a little more than actual. Hopefully we don't need to use as much computer support, but we won't know that, so it's budgeted the same as last year. Then you will see the transfer into 40. Anybody got any questions so far?
I just have a quick one. How much was the rebate?
I do not know the amount of the rebate because it lowered my expense. I would have to pull that out.
And has this happened before?
It happens every year.
Mm-hmm.
We give them an estimate of what we believe their cost to be, but every year we get a rebate back from Rita. It's just a different amount of time for your basis. But since it lowers the cost, there's no specific line item for me to be able to pin it right here for you to see. Some of the numbers that are lower are because previous year had equipment or maybe had some large repairs. I know City Hall had some large repairs last year, and they don't have those same large repairs this year, so they would not be in there. Whereas, if you go to page 18, 101-323, building repairs, that's going to be the building repair needed for are because of the, projects as they were asked for. And,
I'm sorry, that was 101, 323, 323, chief department.
so those are those large repairs that are asked for in the backup financial. Now, I think it's worth looking at, 402. Fund 402. Fund 402, road improvement. It's page 35. Our property tax on this account is approximately $940,000. We want to do $2 million of road repair. That is why the general fund needed to support it to the tune of $1 million. You will see in 402 that the cost coming out of 101 general fund is now revenue in 402, so that there's enough money to be able to afford these projects. Okay. If I could direct you to page 33, opioid settlement. That's kind of new for us. It's actually kind of new for everybody. And last week, I think there were 4 or 5 more settlements that I saw come through on my email, so that there will be more money coming in on this. And actually, there was one more that I just saw today, and I'm going to just even look at that one. That says there's another settlement coming in. So after council's review, should you desire to accept this, we will have money for a very specific purpose. But I anticipate receiving at this point in time, possibly even more than 15,000 this year. It's spread out over 20-some years. It's a set amount. But at first they ask how many cities want to participate. They give you a deadline. I come to you and ask if you want to participate. When they know how many cities are going to participate, then they take the amount of the settlement divided by the cities, basically. So I cannot tell you how much is coming in, but I do anticipate more money coming in on that one. That's new. We haven't spent a dime. I budgeted, should we have something that would fit the category, I budgeted to spend some of it, but it's a totally new animal. Don't know how much is coming in. Don't have a project to spend it on, but I know it's becoming more and more active in terms of money coming into the city.
So on that, the mayor and manager were discussing pooling all of our settlements together to try to figure out, so we're in the early stages of doing research on that, working through the county. So we talked about, is there anything that we can do for all, houses, police and fire department on something? So we're just in the early stages of that, so we won't know that for a while.
Questions so far?
I was just gonna ask, Donna, so you're talking in terms of all the cities pulling their money together and then something working out of the county, like an educational thing or?
Yeah, I don't know if necessarily the county, but yeah, we just started talking now. We talked to Jason Boyd a little, we talked amongst ourselves, but we're waiting to see what everyone, what's coming in and go from there.
Okay, Fund 207, those are grants. We have been very successful in the past couple of years of getting grants. This one is really just some ODNR grants, maybe OPEC grants, year grants. It's more of the smaller grants that we have in-house right now. Again, pretty much what I anticipate coming in should be going out. I don't anticipate a whole lot more today, but that doesn't mean you wouldn't be awarded more later. Fund 208 is a federal grant. I anticipate, there's some federal grant money coming in. This fund does not stand by itself in terms of being able to afford the cost. Federal government will give us enough to be able to pay for everything that we have planned in this fund. So we transfer $100,000 in order to cover the additional costs. And if you look at Fund 204, which is page 24, you will see that this is federal money too. This is flowed through from the county, and we were required to separate it so that it wasn't the same as what our federal money was. You will see that the Captain Stadium lights, those were paid for by, the federal money. The Captain's Clubhouse being paid for by the federal money, and the Galena Harbor project being paid for by federal money. Anytime the city expends $750,000 or more in federal funds, we are required to have a special audit. Therefore, because we spent in 2022 $1.2 million just out of this account, not even counting the federal account, the auditors are coming in and they will do a federal audit on our account. I can tell you that we're going to have those same lovely people here again next year this time, because there's no way to finish the stadium under $750,000. So therefore, we will have a special federal audit again next year for the approximately $5.4 million. And I don't realistically, I don't anticipate Galena Harbor being done next year, and therefore it's likely that we can have them for another year after that for this federal single audit. It's a cost that we have to pay. It's mandated. And this whole job must be done by June 30th, and that's the deal we make when we take their federal money. Okay? So I anticipate a federal single audit. They're in here, they will be in here in March, April of 23. I expect that they'll return in 24, and I truly expect them to be back in 25. Because of the timing on these projects. It's not the date I get the money, it's the date I spend the money. And these projects are all reimbursed basically. I spend the money and then I get the money. So it's pretty much going to be dragged out for a couple more years. Okay? Questions so far? Something in particular you want me to highlight?
How much federal money has the Galena?
The Galena federal project in Fund 204 has not been started in terms of being reimbursed at this point in time. We have spent $78,000 just to prep for it, but we have not been reimbursed at this point in time for that. And therefore, the full $1.9 million is available to be reimbursed to us as the project goes forward. I concentrated on the general fund because that's really where we have the ability to make decisions and we have the ability to influence and make changes in the community. The levy funds are very, very stringent in terms of how we can spend it, and they don't bring in the same amount of money as the general fund. So to do large projects, we're usually adding money to those funds. The 400 series are our capital type projects where we have the stadium, other than the fact that we have this separate accountability for the giant repairs that we're doing. But the 400s are the basic stadium operating and maintenance funds, the fire levy has, or the fire department has a small levy there, where those costs are basically paying for the debt on the fire truck. And, the sewer rehab is again just paying the debt on the sewer. So those accounts are capital type funds, but a lot of them are used to pay the debt on the capital expenditures that we have. We really don't have a lot of money there for discretionary spending at this point in time. We have donations, and then we have deposits. I will say that deposits were exceptionally high, but that's because of the two developments coming in. And we anticipate paying that right back out because those people that put the deposits down to build their home or open the street are going to want their money back so they can go on to the next home or the next street. So that turns around pretty quickly. Yes.
On the, excuse me, 0.620 recreation and land acquisition.
Yeah, I'm 620.
Page 49.
That money comes in through Dave's department when, they're doing building.
New homes that never, there was never a new home on a lot. Then we charge for a brand new building on a lot, then we charge the recreation fee.
And usually the expense is just a placeholder. There's no purpose, there's nothing in mind. It's a placeholder should something be needed in recreation. Again, anything that's already, any true cost has to come before you first. So it's not that we're spending money, it's just we're trying to make sure there's room, should you desire to do something to be able to operate. Because we can't go to zero, and that's a critical number, we can't go below, we can't do a negative in these funds. So I kind of sometimes put money in there just so that you can see, well, if you wanted to do something, how much room did you have?
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Now, I included in the appendixes, Appendix B, not as the debt as we will be paying it this year for OWDA, OPWC, we have the fire truck. It's called a lease, but it's a dollar purchase, and then the key bank, which is our stadium debt. So that lays out the 2023 payment. The payment that's not reflected in any of these numbers is the payment that we do pay to the city of Willoughby to reimburse them for our sewer projects that are joint projects where we signed off on that debt. I have kept that separate, and that sewer amount is close to $1 million, debt reimbursement. No, it's about $500,000. So in addition to our debt that we're paying, the sewer fund is paying $500,000 to the city of Willoughby because Willoughby is writing the check. But it's our joint project, our truly joint ones, not their lines, but our joint ones, where we agreed paid, but we have to pay the debt. So we pay the debt each year for Willoughby, so we pay that. So there's debt twice in basically the sewer fund, some that we committed to and some that we jointly committed to, and they are separate line items with a separate accountability for it. I know that we're spending millions on some of our projects. Our Galena 2 storm project right now is approximately $3.3 million. We had the revetment at Plymouth and Quentin, that was about $565,000. We have Galena Harbor at $1.9 million. We have the Waverly, part 2 of the sewer, that's $3.4 million. So we're, in addition to the Catherine Stadium, in addition to the splash park, these are all projects that we're watching this year as we're on the Vine Street project, approximately $1.2 million. So these are all projects that we're watching and monitoring as the year goes through. We have a lot of projects, we have a lot of grants, and we have a lot of loans on these projects due to the size of these.
No, I have a question about the, one of the new capital items. I'm not sure if it was for cheap or anything. For the radios, I know that in the past, I think Burmester and I think Fairport have gotten some grant money for equipment. Is this something that potentially could be qualified as
We just submitted a grant.
Okay.
We did a federal grant, so it'd be 80-20 split. So, glad you mentioned, because it's something we probably as a community need to be aware of. So our existing radio system becomes, most of the radios we have now become unsupported in 2024. That doesn't mean they become obsolete in 2024, it just means that when they break, or we may send them out for repairs, after 2024, there's not going to be an option for us to do that. So, we're trying to stay ahead of that a little bit, because in the past, when we've done radio changeovers in the county, the last time we did it about 10 years ago, I think, just the fire department was $250,000, and I think the police department was high, like $300,000. So that money all comes together all at once. So what we're trying to do is stay ahead of it. So the County of Boston has been on top of this. It is actually a priority in the FEMA AFG grant this year is radios. We actually had it read twice by people that either are readers or no readers. So we submitted, I know Carol Ann has helped Frank put together numbers and different things. So we're hopeful that that number will be either reduced significantly or become nothing. So it's in a process. We may not hear about it for a while, but we wouldn't move on anything until we hear that becomes part of that. So yeah, we were on top of it. Frank already submitted it. But again, I think as we move forward as a community, radios are going to be an interesting thing in the future. They have a very robust system in the county. It offers us a lot of ability, but those attributes also cost more because the equipment we have to use. There's possible discussion about encrypting radios, especially on the PD side. The problem with encryption is if PD encrypts and we don't, and we no longer have the capability of talking. We do lots of mutual aid out of the county. So if we encrypt as FD, and we have to go to Chicago, or I go to Euclid, or the cities that border like Ashtabula, and those fire departments didn't encrypt, which a lot of those counties aren't requiring encryption. Now we have to go talking to them. So there's a lot of logistical things we're trying to work out to see how that actually works itself out. I think that always trying to be ahead of it. The last time we had made major purchases, every city was in the same scenario. So I think this time around we're trying to stay up on it a little bit. We have a maintenance program that we spend. I think it's like a $3,500 maintenance contract we have with communication services. So right now, when one of our portables not falls off or it's not transmitting, we'll send it out there and they make the repair. So the maintenance part of it is actually working well. It's just what the future looks like. So I'll keep you up to date on that. I think Chris spent a lot of time. So regardless of what happens, I think we're aware of the fact, and we're aware of the fact that maybe baby steps is the best approach as opposed to diving with both feet. I'll if I may, if that's okay with you, a couple of other capital things and stuff. So vehicle purchases are going to be interesting for us as a community. When we call, we're looking for a pickup truck. We have to replace fire marshal's vehicle, and then there's a staff vehicle we replace. So if you call, it's hard to find vehicles, and they don't know when they're going to get them kind of thing. So when I called Caroline and the mayor, it was, we need one, not sure we're gonna get it, if it doesn't happen this year, that's okay, you know, we'll make ends meet, we'll do what we have to do. So that is gonna be determined on that. Again, I'm not trying to put a lot of the burden on Frank, but Kovacic is also working with vendors on floors. And we're actually thinking out of the box. We've had at least 2 other vendors have different thoughts on what we could possibly do that for, whether it be, you know, something, the traditional like concrete or different things. So he's had 2 or 3 people come in with really out of the box thinking. I don't know what it does to that price, but most certainly we're trying to just say, instead of just saying put concrete in there, we're looking at different options.
So when we have the tour, are you talking about the floor inside where the trucks are?
Yeah, so floor that's coming up, the red floor that's coming up on the ground there.
And then, did you guys fix the pad outside, because I thought that was an issue.
This budget is for it, and it'll happen this year.
They got Tuesday at the end of the year, and, just to add on something that
No, yeah.
So, the chief talked, so the chief Kevin's vehicle, 191, there's another item he wanted, and we ended up going with this because that build on that was almost, is 19 months. So, the chiefs both handed in this week the CT, so we are gonna start the route for the new building. So, we're looking at this, and, you know, we wanna make minimal repairs there, and we're trying to work through the floor. I've talked to one of the contractors to see if there's some alternatives, as the chief said, because again, I don't wanna spend $400,000, again, you know, it's probably, especially the climate right now, could be an uphill battle on getting a bond issue. We're not gonna know what the total cost is after a while. Instead, they just gave pages and pages to the town that gives the CT to start that process on building this safety center.
So I'm hopeful that the capital expenditures from the FD, the numbers that are presented will come down significantly. As far as the roof goes, we'll probably do a feasibility study just to see what that roof needs done. The center roof, we've done the outside and exterior roofs on both sides, and actually a pitch roof, and there's a flat roof where the trucks are. The center roof's the ones in question. What actually needs to happen is they need to take all the HVAC units off. There's a lot of work. So we're gonna actually do probably more of a feasibility, when we bring these prospective vendors in and see what those costs are. If we start seeing that it's gonna cost a lot more, that's probably a decision we'll have to stop and decide how much we're gonna put in. So, I guess just saying that a lot of this is in flux. I hope that through the year, these numbers get reduced significantly, if not at all. And some of these projects might just not be completed this year. Like, I'm not sure what will happen with the trucks. But we're always trying to work, you know, we have these opportunities for grants and stuff like that. And I'm not sure if anybody's had experience with, but especially the AFG from the federal government, they usually prioritize based on climate. So if they see that there's a lot of need for fire trucks, you know, then they prioritize fire trucks. But really this time it was radios, not sure why, we just got kind of lucky, so keep it up. Yes, I don't know.
So, if you're gonna go forward with the city center, or whatever state center, what is the projected, like, when? Like, are you saying in the next couple of years you want to do that, is that 5 years? Like,
Well, once we get the numbers from them, then if you guys agree that we're gonna put a levy on, then we're looking at that. I mean, if we just had some interstate cities, then, we'll be going May, or this May coming in the primary, to get their, levy passed, which is $2.5 million. So, I mean, again, we don't have a total cost on our account right now, so it's probably gonna be, honestly, I mean, possibly about 20 million, so we have to do the math on bond and all that, so.
But I think to your point, Andy, I think that this would be a work in progress. I mean, it wouldn't be something that would have a quick turnaround time. I think that the information time requested, like, you know, from our situation, if we stay on the same site and disagree upon that that's the best site, which I think, you know, logistically, it's probably close to being the site. You know, how do we house firefighters, fire trucks for 2 years? In the summertime, it would be okay because you can leave trucks outside, but in the winter, I can't keep fire engines outside, you know, with water. So there's tons and tons of things that would have to be decided how that would look before I think the information Tom had acquired from me and Larry was very detailed information, and it covered a lot of that aspect. Like, you know, firemen are 24/7, so where do we house them? You know, do we need to bring trailers in? Do we have temporary shelters for them? Whatever they can be. So there's absolutely logistically tons of information before that. So I think this really is, you know, step one of many to figure out the direction we really need to go on. So, you know, the roof project, we have a couple of trouble spots where we have to catch the leaks. The phase floor probably needs to be a priority just because we continue to have guys out there, we have visitors that come in, you know, the front pad taking up some of these projects, regardless of what direction we take it, you know, even if we have, by the time we decide what we want to do, put it out for bonds, we get a bond passed and start building and all that type of thing, probably talking, you know, a minimum of 5 years before we have a good idea of what, you know, direction we really want to go into. So I think this is the process. So working with the mayor, working with Carol Ann, trying to come up with a plan for the fire station to say, you know, these are the things that we probably need to push through. These are some of the things we might be able to hold back on, that type of thing. We decided to upgrade some radios for dispatch and fire department. So they come into the existing radio room, which we try to upgrade as much as we possibly can. But, you know, it's working fine now with the radios and that type of thing. So we'll see what happens. And I think that you guys are probably getting a good idea once these guys see what, you know, CT says about what we submitted about just the logistical stuff. I'm sure the things that I missed, that I didn't think about this sometimes. Because not only is it having the ability to have firefighters to be somewhere, they have to be able to cook, they're going to be able to do laundry, they're going to be able to go to the bathroom, they're going to be able to shower. So it's just not just having somewhere where they can sit and wait for the call to come in, they have to exist. So I think that, and again, I'm not sure what other cities do when they build on the same site. Is there a way that we can do, you know, half the buildings we do, you know, keep one of the departments existing there all times? Because if the police was up and they were building the FD side, then we could use the police department, you know, for that kind of thing. So there's options, you know. Again, I'm not an engineer and I'm not that smart, so I gotta rely on the figure out where else things.
Chief, I have a question for you, if I may. You said that the rate is going to be unsupported in 2024. How long have they been at a supported status? How long do they last, or how long are they generally?
Well, I think they're probably getting about 15 years out of the radios.
Okay.
Again, we have a robust system. If you talk to county officials,
Yeah.
They take a lot of pride. So in theory, you know, if I go in at the hearing, I hit the radio channel, I can talk to a firefighter area. And in theory, that's how it works. We have national channels, we have Marsh radio systems, you know, we have this interoperability that's crazy. I could listen to Stolen Fire right now, thinking that comes with a cost. So, the radios that we are purchasing every year seem to be more expensive. The last time we bought affordable handhelds, we thought that was expensive, about $3,300. Well, projecting out with encryption, it can get up to about $6,000. And, you know, we ask questions like, well, how does smaller communities like a Grand River or a Leroy, you know, so what we're doing is we're actually, you know, right now the way that it works, we felt that the safest way is that we have any frontline vehicle, so it's 3 ambulances, 2 fire engines, and 2 staff cars. We have radios in variety positions. So now we're looking to see, we need to alter that law. You know, we issue every full-time member, we issue everybody their own personal radio. So when they come on duty, now they have their radio with them, they can take it home on their off day. We're even looking to see what the feasibility of those things. So we, in essence, we may have to reduce the number of radios that we have in order to afford the radios. So there's a lot going on. It's always dynamic. It is, you know, it's one of those things where you really start thinking about it. Like I think that we can make it work. I just don't know how. Like if I go to Leroy and they fire, and they can't afford radios. What's the option?
Right.
You know, we yell out the window, you know, kind of thing. That's, you know, that's not a good way to approach it either. So we'll try to stay on top of it. And, you know, it's interesting because you can only imagine that if I was a vendor making Motorola radios, I don't want them to last forever.
Right.
So the new radios, if you held them hand in hand, you wouldn't know the difference.
Right.
But they're working.
And then just real quick, what is our current bond rating now?
We're privately held, so we don't have a rating at this point in time.
Anything further concerning the budget this evening?
We're gonna have another meeting, are we having another meeting or not?
Caroline, you think it's a little bit?
I think we can answer the questions without even a full meeting, actually.
I mean, we could schedule another finance committee meeting. I know before the next, city council meeting, you have your ECDC, so the next one, the 28th, would not be good, that first one in March. Maybe we could, if we just wanted to do a finance meeting on 6:30 or something, or
You plan on doing 3 meetings, that's not.
Budget we do on the committee.
okay, what do you?
We still talk about it.
Right, so,
Yeah, hold the finance committee.
So it would have to be like
ECDC at the.
it would have to be next week. It would have to be like next week, we were gonna have the part within the,
Yeah,
by the end. I mean, we're on first reading, and keep talking about it.
and the other thing is you can discuss it through the field. And you also discuss it through council board, if you'd like to go back on to, if you have more questions.
Well, can I just meet with your this week or next week?
And so we don't have any need for, instead of the finance committee before.
We have to have this passed before on March 31st. We want pre-hearing, council meeting. That's gotta be the last one of February until March, unless you're gonna do it by March. It has to be done, state law, March 31st, boom, done.
Still make changes during the 3 months.
If there's nothing further. At this time, hopefully, the vote to move it forward, so I will vote to move it forward. Councilman Oversee votes to move it forward, and Councilwoman Schmidt also votes to move it forward, so that's unanimous. We will move the, city budget forward, put on first reading on, I believe, the 28th, right? February 28th, first reading. So, and as of the time, it's now 6:55, and the meeting is adjourned.
council as a whole committee meeting for February 14th, 2023, order at 7:02 p.m. All members of council are present in the administration, and our police chief, Larry White, fire chief, Ted Littleton, mayor and sales director, Dennis Morley, our law director, Randy Coleman, chief building official, Greg Miller, and finance director, Caroline Chanel. Everyone else is absolutely excused. If there's anyone recording this meeting, the courtesy of the public, you please identify yourself so that no attendee is known for being recorded. No one is being recording this meeting. Your legislation flow, your legislation number 02-14-01, a resolution authorizing the city of East Lake to enter into a memorandum of understanding between the city of Willoughby, city of East Lake, and city of Willoughby, collectively the parties and declaring an emergency. Mr. Mayor.
This is a memorandum of understanding between the cities that Randy wrote up. Willoughby already passed it. If they're coming, Willoughby is going to pass theirs. And it was just we split the cost for the engineering for the Vine Street 2024. But we have to start the procedures now. I think so. I think you're on. No. So I'm explaining when I find something else part of it. So I'm not something I report to explain also.
Any questions for that? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll move on to legislation number 02-14-02, a resolution authorizing directing the mayor and director of finance to award the contract for the pavement of 332nd Street to Ohio Pavement Incorporated, a member of the Sourcewell Consortium, for the amount of $32,240 and declaring an emergency.
So this is for 332nd, where we got the grant from the block grant. We don't mill, so we had to bid out the mill, so we had to write and set up some.
Any questions for the mayor? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to legislation number 02-14-03, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of a conditional use permit to Yahira Mason doing business as care adult daycare located at 34734 Pine Street, East Lake, Ohio, in a B1 district, and declaring an emergency. Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Ms. Mason was the planning commission. The planning commission was very supportive, and, I don't see any reason to deny it. It's an adult, services that will probably be needed.
This is in the Vegas, correct?
Yeah, it's on the, far east, northeast corner of the building, on the front, and then all the way to the far east of it.
Any questions, Mr. Mayor? Thank you. And move on to legislation number 02-14-04, resolution of the city of East Lake City Council finding that the suburban land lease area related to the following location, the right of way at Wicklow Drive is not necessary or required for the various uses specified in the Ohio Revised Code, section 1506.11B, and designating the mayor of the city of East Lake as the signatory authority to act on behalf of the city of East Lake in all matters related to said suburban land lease area and declaring an emergency.
You read the appendix that CP's been out in the bill. This is something we have to do with the Army Corps and ODNR. We did the work down there with the revetment, and this is part of what we have to do with the government. Took for a good while to get it done, so that's all it is.
Any questions for the mayor? All right, seeing none, move on to legislation number 02-14-05, a resolution declaring a moratorium on permitting any vape or e-cigarette retail business within the city of East Lake and declaring an emergency. Mr. Mayor?
I asked the law director, after my discussion a month ago, about what we could do for right now to curtail any new vape or retail from in business. He he did some research and put together the resolution. And also to add on that, Dave and Judy met with, someone from the county. Dave will be sitting down starting in April, to go over some more things that we possibly can do for Vine Street. One, to get some more grant money. We set up this little district, so Dave's gonna be working with, Dave Radke from the county, starting in April. Once we get something put together ordinance-wise through the county and Dave, we will also bring that back to council and work through that.
Are there any questions from there?
This is, I don't know, yes. So, remember, like, maybe 6 months ago, you had offered a grant. It was only for specific, for businesses, for specific areas. Was anyone able to utilize that?
Yeah, the Taylor shop on the corner of 332nd, going to be doing a remodel phase. They're almost at the final stages. But again, when you get these grants, the grants are sometimes difficult to get. After you get the grants, we're more jumping concepts like the ARPA money and everything. So yeah, I think Judy's been working with Leon and her mother to get that done.
So yeah, I was just curious.
That's also to a 30% match from the business has to pay a 30% match.
I just got a question about you mentioned districts. Are you talking about the historical districts or districting as part of the?
Well, Jake Radke has not really gone that route yet. Again, we're in early stages, so once they look up, I mean, there's a historical district on Vine or not. I think that's something that Dave Radke started looking at now, so when he starts meeting with Dave, we'll have that. And like I said, once that's all done, we'll bring it to council, see if there's any tweaks or anything that we need to do after that.
Councilman Kissel?
What's the purpose of the moratorium on vape shops?
Right now we have 6. I don't know if we need any more at this time.
I mean, is there some issue that they're causing, or is it just the people don't like them?
So, if I may, we've been to North High several times in the last month for kids that are vaping in schools and then need to be transported to the hospital. I'm not sure that's a reflection of what's happening on Vine, but it most certainly has become a problem. We're seeing a trend a lot. We're there today. And, you know, it's almost a business for some of these kids. They're selling the ability to use their vape pens. You know, I just think that that's, you know, something, you know, again, I'm not, most certainly not blaming anybody that owns a city business in the city of Eastlake, but most certainly we're seeing on the EMS side a lot more cases of, young adults, high school kids, that are taking out north that are either have been unconscious or using or, intoxicated by whatever they're vaping. So I'm not sure what that represents as our community. So I know anytime I start seeing trends, I'm gonna talk a little more about my report. If I'm seeing trends, I take it right to him and say, here's the things we're starting to see, and I'm not sure what that means. You know, I think that part of my job as a fire chief is to be, you know, make sure I'm understanding what's happening on the road. He doesn't always know the spot calls I'm going unless I bring it to his attention. So I only offer that up as part of the discussion. Again, I'm not saying that it's like business is doing it. I can tell you what we're seeing in high school.
And then part of that is part of what Dave's gonna be doing with them is if we can say this many feet, just like when they put the legislation in for the, what were those machines called? The internet cafes, we started looking at that too, because, you know, one, like I said, we have 6 now. Downtown Willoughby has now 2 and all, maybe possibly another one going, and they're just everywhere, so we're trying to figure out more things. Talking to the chief, actually talked to the principal at North also about some issues going on there, and I know obviously the police has been on there too. So again, we're just trying to curtail less issues. I'm not saying these kids aren't gonna get them somewhere else on the street, but if we can curtail it, you know, that's part of it.
And we certainly would be the only ones doing that. There's a lot of cities that are doing it, Norton Park. It's becoming more and more that when you get an oversaturation within a particular area, it's not uncommon to do. Or the buffering, multiple ways of doing it.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, we don't have any legislation pending. We don't have anything under miscellaneous. our meeting is adjourned at 7:12 p.m. February 14th, 2023, order at 7:12 p.m. Ms. Schmidt, please lead us in the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, please call roll.
Here.
Here. Here. Mr. Overstreet.
Here.
Mr. Stomach.
Here.
Mr. Meyer.
Here. Is there a motion to approve the agenda for regular council meeting February 14th, 2023? Second.
Second.
The vote is open.
Mr. Cotton.
Yes.
Ms. Schmidt. Yes. Mr. Katrina.
Yes.
Ms. Kreniak.
Yes.
Mr. Overstreet.
Yes.
Mr. Stomach.
Yes.
Mr. Meyer.
Yes. Motion is carried. The agenda is approved. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the regular council meeting January 24th, 2023?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Overstreet.
Yes.
Ms. Kreniak.
Yes.
Mr. Katrina.
Yes.
Mr. Cotton.
Yes.
Ms. Schmidt.
Yes.
Mr. Stomach.
Yes.
Mr. Meyer.
Yes. The motion is carried. The minutes are approved. Next scheduled household board meeting scheduled for Tuesday, February 20th, 2023 at 7 p.m. with the regular council meeting immediately following the adjournment of the council as a whole committee meeting. We did have a finance committee meeting. Sir?
Yes, we did discuss the full city budget this evening, and we moved it forward. We do have the city budget is, in, paper form here and digital form, if anybody wants to see it. Then we just moved it forward, and that was it.
Any questions for council to consider? Aye. Seeing none, we move on to recognition of public. Any motion to address council? Aye. Seeing none, we'll move on to legislation proposed. Will the clerk please read legislation number 02-24-01?
A resolution authorizing the city of Eastlake to enter into a memorandum of understanding between the city of Willoughby, city of Eastlake, and city of Willow, collectively the parties, and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to suspend the rule requiring separate reading to read in full? So moved. Is there a second? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Overstreet.
Yes.
Mr. Stomach.
Yes.
Mr. Katrina.
Yes.
Mr. Cotton.
Yes.
Ms. Kreniak.
Yes.
Ms. Schmidt.
Yes.
Mr. Meyer.
Yes. Is there a motion to adopt?
Move to adopt.
Is there a second?
Second.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Overstreet.
Yes.
Mr. Stomach.
Yes.
Mr. Katrina.
Yes.
Mr. Cotton.
Yes.
Ms. Kreniak.
Yes.
Ms. Schmidt.
Yes.
Mr. Meyer.
Yes. The motion carried. The legislation is adopted. Will the clerk please read legislation number 02-14-02?
A resolution authorizing and directing the mayor and director of finance to award the contract for the pavement milling of 332nd Street to Ohio Paving Inc., a member of the Sourcewell Consortium, for a total amount of $32,240 and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to suspend the rule requiring separate reading to read in full? Is there a second?
Second.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Cotton.
Yes.
Ms. Kreniak.
Yes.
Mr. Katrina.
Yes.
Ms. Schmidt.
Yes.
Mr. Overstreet.
Yes.
Mr. Stomach.
Yes.
Mr. Meyer.
Yes. Is there a motion to adopt? Is there a second?
Second.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Cotton.
Yes.
Ms. Kreniak.
Yes.
Mr. Katrina.
Yes.
Ms. Schmidt.
Yes.
Mr. Overstreet.
Yes.
Mr. Stomach.
Yes.
Mr. Meyer.
Yes. The motion is carried. The legislation is adopted. Will the clerk please read legislation number 02-14-03?
An ordinance authorizing the issuance of a conditional use permit to Sierra Mason doing business as Beloved Care Adult Daycare located at 34734 Pine Street, Eastlake, Ohio, in the B1 district, and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to suspend the rule requiring separate reading to read in full?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Overstreet.
Yes.
Ms. Kreniak.
Yes.
Mr. Katrina.
Yes.
Mr. Cotton.
Yes.
Ms. Schmidt.
Yes.
Mr. Stomach.
Yes.
Mr. Meyer.
Yes. Is there a motion to adopt?
Move to adopt.
Is there a second?
Second.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Overstreet.
Yes.
Ms. Kreniak. A resolution of the City of East Lake Council finding that the submerged land use area related to the following location, the right of way at Whitfield Drive, is not necessary or required for the various uses specified in the Ohio Revised Code, section 1506.11E, and designating the mayor of the City of East Lake as the signatory authority to act on behalf of the City of East Lake in all matters related to such submerged land use area and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to suspend the rule requiring second reading to read the bill? So moved. Is there a second? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Swan.
Yes.
Mr. Sonic.
Yes.
Mr. Katsounik.
Yes.
Ms. Craniac.
Yes.
Ms. Schmidt. Yes. Mr. Overstreet.
Yes.
Mr. Meyer.
Yes. Is there a motion to adopt?
Move to adopt.
Is there a second? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Swan.
Yes.
Mr. Sonic.
Yes.
Mr. Katsounik.
Yes.
Ms. Craniac.
Yes.
Ms. Schmidt. Yes. Mr. Overstreet.
Yes.
Mr. Meyer.
Yes. The motion is carried, legislation is adopted. Will the clerk please read legislation number 02-14-05?
A resolution declaring a moratorium on the permitting of any vape or e-cigarette retail business within the City of East Lake and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to suspend the rule requiring second reading to read the bill?
So moved.
Is there a second? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Craniac.
Yes.
Ms. Schmidt.
Yes.
Mr. Katsounik.
Yes.
Mr. Swan.
Yes.
Mr. Overstreet.
Yes.
Mr. Sonic.
Yes.
Mr. Meyer.
Yes. Is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Yes.
Clerk please call the roll.
Ms. Craniac.
Yes.
Ms. Schmidt.
Yes.
Mr. Katsounik.
Yes.
Mr. Swan.
Yes.
Mr. Overstreet.
Yes.
Mr. Sonic.
Yes.
Mr. Meyer.
Yes, the motion is carried, legislation is adopted. We don't have any legislation pending, we don't have any unfinished business, we don't have any new business. Move on to our administrative reports, reports from our Air Safety Director, Dennis Moore.
Thank you, Mr. President. Welcome to this evening's meeting. Congratulations on your business. Hope you do well there. Anything you need, go to date, or if you need to get a whole mile, please do, but congratulations to both. Also, we got some information from the governor's office that the local government fund will go from 1.66 to 1.7. So plan not to spend all that money. So we'll see. We will see when that happens. Got some update on Splash Park. Construction documents should be ready February 3rd through April 7th. We'll have to do a review on April 7th. First bid will go out April 14th. Second bid advertisement will be April 21st. Our bid opening will be April 28th of this year. And then we would hope for council approval on May 9th. That's an update on the Splash Park. To go along with the joint MOU with the two cities, we had to do a quality-based selection for Vine Street. The only ones that bid were CT, but we still have to do the scoring on my scoring. The scores are myself, Willowick, which is the mayor, but I saw the service director sent it to me, Mayor Fiala and Colonel Ham. So once we have that, we should have that for the next February 28th meeting to assign that to them. And then it's a rigorous schedule with ODOT. We had a pre-construction meeting for Waverly Relief 2. Contract amount basically $2.7 million for Breezy Trucking. We should have some more information for the schedule sometime in April. We'll keep you updated with that. Again, that's going to be April through December. Tom has met with the county about the water line placement on Vine Street. That should be, we should be getting a lot more information on that also. And then the road program will be bid out on Friday, 2/17. Bids will be due 3/3. Sterling discussed in the budget for 1 point. Last year it ended up being 2.7, so it'll be a little lower, 2.3 with the size of the job service guys are doing too. So these are the asphalt roads and then the concrete roads. That concludes my report. I'm open for questions, except for, I know it's not certified yet, but congratulations to Ward Councilman on your hard campaign. Thank you.
Are there any questions? All right, seeing none, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Move on to our fire chief, Ted.
president. So happy Valentine's Day, I don't know what that means for us, as all be here together and stuff. Anyway. So things have happened quite quickly over the last couple of weeks. We had to give a test. So all the thanks to Carol Ann and the mayor, Carol Hardy, putting together. One of our members had taken a job at another location. So we wanted to move quickly to get that in place. So a lot of things came together. We were able to get within our 2-week period to get the notices out. We had 21 people set for the test. So we actually went, our last turnout was 9. So we doubled. So we're happy with that kind of thing. So it was something I was unaware of, had no idea. So it was more of a reactionary type of thing. So moving out fast, hopefully we can process somebody and get them in place and kind of keep an eye on it. It's been a real tough 2 weeks for both of our places. Tragedies and near tragedies. And as always, personnel respond. They are appropriate in handling the emergencies the best they possibly can. But again, it's one of those interesting times for us, that type of thing. To give you an idea, we have police officers driving ambulances just because we're spread out and the types of emergencies. So, we're kind of watching mental health. We're much more obviously, with all of our problems as an FD, with the suicide, we're much more in tune to mental health. So, over the last couple of weeks, we were watching our membership, especially the members that were on some of the calls. But it's been an interesting couple of weeks for us. And as I mentioned, with what's happening with young adults, we're seeing babies sick. We're seeing people in their 30s, in their 40s, being overheard surgeries, and we're seeing advanced cancers. So I'm not sure what that means. Mental health is much more of a concern than it always has been. So there's a lot of health issues that are out there right now. So I would just say, if you have friends, family, constituents, make sure they take care of themselves, and they're always observing themselves. If they need help on something, those types of things, and hopefully we can get ahead of some of this stuff. It's an interesting time right now. That's all I can say. And I hope that someone's paying attention that's smarter and has more power than I do, because I'm not sure what's happening, why it's happening the way it is, but we're seeing a lot more safety. Why usually average anywhere from 8 to 12 requests from your Cuyahoga County Coroner's Office. We already have 6 for this first 6 weeks of this year. So I'm not sure what's happening, why it's happening, but I would just say that for yourselves, for your families, and people that you care about, and people that we serve, maybe just remind them that taking care of themselves, going to the doctors if they don't feel well, if they have mental health issues, make sure they're seeking out help in that section. So I'm trying to bring down the crowd, but I think that is most certainly something that is concerning to us. We're seeing people that traditionally don't have to be in ambulances. We're dealing with that. I know that some of the stuff that's happening in schools with mental health and all that other stuff. So it's kind of crazy. So anyway, it is Valentine's Day, so
So I know NAMI has a specific line for police and fire, for mental health. And I'm 95% sure, but is that something that you would consider closing somewhere? Because I know you can't force anyone to maybe that if somebody ever needed it.
So after we lost Jeff, obviously we were all in that position where we needed to check ourselves. So we do have members that are trained as peer counselors. On our boards in the union office, and it's always encouraged, we have as much information as we can put out for people. So there's resources out there. These kinds of, we have a tragedy, we have a tough call, we debrief. And, I'll debrief not only with members, but also debrief with officers. Not a lot of times evidence that it's bugging somebody after the incident. It could be a couple of days after the incident, it could be a week after the incident, it could be longer after the incident. So, we learned a lot of tough, valuable lessons. So we're trying to stay on top of it. I know that, one of Larry's members was involved with a serious, illness, and we ended up losing a baby. So, he's involved also with his members to make sure that they have enough help. After that member was with our guys, they had a debriefing together. They spent some time together. So, we do our best for sure. In my career, people deal with things and process things differently. normally what ends up happening when someone is in need, they find a way to get it done for the most part. Again, our obligation, especially as bosses, is to stay on top of it, or we, just make sure. We do have a focus across the station a lot. Peer counseling has really changed a lot for us. It used to be, members would come in, we had this employee assistance program, and you would do that through your insurance company. But now police and fire have peer support groups, so those peer counselors are always available, and they're available with different members of the organization at different levels of the organization. So that is a one-on-one contact, and then that starts the ball rolling. And those peer counselors are trained to think that if it's something that they can't see be handled as a peer counselor, then we get mental health professionals involved. So I'd like to think we're doing the most we can. Again, we always be doing more. Like I think that if anything happens next door, we're just much more aware. I mean, something that we do have that day, that there's a lot of people that come into place. I have many people coming in that weren't on the call, coming in and saying, hey, how's this person doing? I know that when the officer was off, he was calling all those guys on the incident several days after the incident. So, yeah, I like to think we do as much as we can. Hopefully we stay ahead of everybody. But, it's one of those things about the country we're on. And it's a rut. It's one of those things where I remind people all the time. 99% of what we do, we help people. We have good outcomes. It's that 1% that you don't get in your career kind of thing. So we have much more good days than we do bad days. And even on those good days, I'm not saying we don't have sick people, but on those good days, you will get that kind of number. Hopefully, we'll get this stretch.
Any other questions?
I was just gonna ask one, and this, I guess this will go for both the chiefs. Have you guys applied for any grants? I know Mentor PD got a grant for their peer-to-peer counseling. I don't know if that's something that you guys have looked at.
I know that there's through the locals, when Jeff passed away, the international came in, they educated us. So I know that there's a couple of the members of the department who somehow were able to get training, and I think they did a lot of that on their own. That training that comes from people that train peer counselors, that's where the money goes for grants. So there's people in this county that are trained kind of thing. But that's where a lot of that focus, because a lot of times they invite people in at no cost to do that. And a lot of guys, a couple guys that have done it on their own time, there's no cost to the city and that everything. So.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, thanks, Chief. We'll move on to our police chief.
Just to add a couple things to what Chief Whittington said. We do have a couple guys in the peer support group. Joe Park, I don't know if that's the same group that do Crossroads. They have a pretty good setup. They're the ones that do the CIT training. We're dealing with emotionally disturbed people, and they offer that for free. That's all given in the last week of the police academy through the academy. So, guys in that through online training and things like that, guys are more trained now than ever. But like after an incident like that, I usually send an email out to everyone, so everyone has their own contact information that they don't have to ask the boss for phone number or a coworker. They can just get it through their own email, contact on their own, and then like Ted said, a lot of it's a follow up as well, because a lot of us go through dark humor or just talking to each other or whatever, but we want to allow people to have those options available. So there are good resources out there in Lake County that we at least make sure that everyone's aware of, and get them to the water, and then you got to walk away so they can partake themselves. As far as hiring, we are almost at the end of our process. We'll be having a hiring board on Monday, and hopefully selecting a few officers from there. Collection of some have training, some are almost through training, like within a week or two, and some are a month out. So, with the way our FTO program works, any combination of that group will be good. As Mayor and I was speaking with police chief today, the National Testing Network has some good options. The one bad option is that 4 people that were on that list, had hired fight for the same personnel and then lateraling on top of that. And so we're doing the best we can. I think it looks like we got a couple, good people on here that we should be able to get trained and, proceed on with, so, that's all I got.
Any questions for the chief? Seeing none, thanks, chief. We'll move on to our chief building official, Vic.
Just that, as you know, we're in spring already. Neighbors, you know, get a lot of complaints already with weather. No, I want to say, thanks for Denise Edwards, our new secretary, for the service and building. She's made a world of difference in our office, and things are running really smoothly. Appreciate her, and she's proud. That's about it.
Any questions for Mr. Knapp? All right, Mr. Moon, seeing none, we'll move on to our finance director, Carol Chanel.
Thank you. We're working with the auditor's office, with our local government team to do our year-end 2022. And we're also working with auditors as they've requested a lot of the information on 21 and 22, even though 22 is not quite closed, in terms of a financial. So we're working with them, trying to get them all the information in order to meet our deadlines that we have for the audit. And I did receive a notice today that our local government funds went up, $150,000, maybe $175,000. So that was the result of the big announcement. I got the notice today. Any questions?
Any questions, Mr. Chanel? Thank you, Mr. Chanel. We'll move on to our law director, Randy Clement.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the report, I was just, Kevin was here, I was gonna just remind us about that concrete bid for and stuff, so we're already on. Well,
Any questions for law director? All right. See none. I don't have anything else. All right. Meeting is adjourned at 7:35 p.m.